The doors of the exclusive Lenox Hill maternity ward slid open, but it wasn't a doctor. It was a nightmare. What happens when a billionaire's mistress, fueled by betrayal, confronts the 9 months pregnant wife? What happens when the attack is broadcast on a live feed and the most powerful man in New York, the billionaire father, sees it all? This isn't just a story of love and betrayal. It's a story of a father's revenge, so brutal and so public, it brought the entire city to its knees. Stay with me as we uncover every shocking detail. The air in the Fifth Avenue penthouse was so still it felt manufactured. Evelyn Croft, née Hayes, sat on a custom-made Roche-Beaubois sofa, her hand resting on the swell of her stomach, now 39 weeks and taut as a drum. The baby, the heir, as the New York press had already dubbed him, was quiet. Evelyn wished he would kick, just to break the suffocating silence. Her apartment, if one could call the 10,000-square-foot duplex that overlooked Central Park. The view was a staggering, panoramic masterpiece of green and grey, but to Evelyn, it was just wallpaper. Everything in her life was a beautiful, cold, inanimate object, including, she often thought, her husband. Joel Croft, even his name sounded expensive. He was the sole son of Arthur Croft, a man who didn't just own property in Manhattan, he owned Manhattan. Croft Holdings was a hydra of global shipping, high-stakes real estate, and media. Joel was the polished, handsome, Dartmouth-educated public face of the empire. He was also, for the past 6 months, a ghost in a $30,000 Brioni suit. He's in a late-night merger. His assistant, a brisk woman named Chloe, would chirp over the phone. He's flying to Singapore. He's in a sensitive negotiation. Evelyn, who had graduated top of her class from NYU Law before being swept up in this whirlwind marriage, knew sensitive negotiation was a code. It was a code for perfume that wasn't hers, for late-night texts he read with a guarded smile, for the emotional and physical chasm that had opened between them the moment the pregnancy test came back positive. She had married him for love, or at least she'd married him for the dazzling idea of love he'd presented. He had pursued her with a billionaire's focus, renting out the entire Balthazar for their 3rd date, flying in peonies from Holland in the dead of winter. It was only after the wedding, after the ink was dry on the most restrictive prenuptial agreement in the state of New York, that she realized she wasn't a wife. She was an acquisition, the final piece of his perfect life portfolio. A sharp Braxton Hicks contraction seized her, pulling a gasp from her lips. She looked at the clock. 11:00 p.m. Joel was, predictably, handling a crisis. "That's it, baby boy," she whispered to her stomach. "You and me, we need to get checked." She didn't call Joel. She called the car service. An hour later, she was being settled into the opulent garden suite at Lenox Hill Hospital, the same place where the city's royalty and Hollywood elite came to give birth. Her obstetrician, the silver-haired and famous Dr. Evelyn Reed, had been summoned from a gala. "Everything looks stable, Evelyn," Dr. Reed soothed, checking the fetal monitor. "The heartbeat is strong, but given the stress and the contractions, I want to keep you overnight, just for observation. We're almost at the finish line." Evelyn nodded, sinking into the high-thread count sheets. The nurse, a kind-faced woman named Patricia, dimmed the lights. "You get some rest. Your husband will be here in the morning, I'm sure." Evelyn just closed her eyes. "I'm sure," she lied. The observation meant she was alone, in a multi-$1,000-a-night room with a security guard posted outside. The guard wasn't for her. It was for the Croft heir. Every part of her life was a transaction, a security measure. She drifted into a fitful sleep, unaware that 2 floors below, a woman with blazing eyes and a stolen visitor's pass was arguing her way past a security checkpoint, her voice rising in hysteria. "You don't understand," the woman wept. "I'm her sister. She's not well. She called me. She needs me. Please, I have to see Evelyn Croft." The name Croft opened doors, even in the middle of the night. The flustered young security guard, intimidated by the woman's designer handbag and genuine-looking tears, eventually relented. "Room 1208, he sighed. "But you have to be quiet." "I will," said Seraphina Reed. "I promise." The click of the door woke Evelyn from her shallow sleep. She squinted at the sliver of antiseptic light from the hallway. "Patricia," she called out, her voice thick. "Is everything okay?" The door closed, locking with a soft, definitive snick. A woman stepped out of the shadows. She was not a nurse. She was beautiful, in the sharp, high-maintenance way of so many New York women. Her hair was a waterfall of salon-perfect blonde. Her body was lean and athletic under a silk blouse, and her eyes were terrifying. They were wide, red-rimmed, and fixed on Evelyn with a chilling intensity. She was holding a large, expensive-looking leather satchel. "Evelyn Croft," the woman said. Her voice was a low, vibrating hum of rage. Evelyn's hand instinctively went to the call button by her bed. "Who are you? You're not supposed to be in here. I'm calling security." "He's not coming," the woman spat, taking a step closer. "He never comes, does he? Not when it matters." Evelyn's blood ran cold. She knew, with the kind of primal certainty a woman has, exactly who this was. This was the sensitive negotiation. This was the Singapore merger. "Get out," Evelyn said, her voice shaking but finding a new edge of command. "Get out?" The woman laughed, a short, sharp, ugly sound. "That's what he told me. Get out." After he told me he loved me. After he promised me it was me. "I don't know what you're talking about," Evelyn said, frantically pressing the call button. "Why wasn't Patricia coming?" "Don't lie!" the woman shrieked, lunging forward. She wasn't holding a weapon. She was holding an iPad. She shoved it inches from Evelyn's face. The screen was lit up with a live video feed. It was a baby monitor app. Evelyn stared, confused, at the grainy footage of a dark room. "It was our nursery, Evelyn," the woman cried, her face crumbling. "He set it up in my apartment. He picked out the crib. He said he was trapped. He said you were just an obligation. That the baby," she gestured wildly at Evelyn's stomach, "was just an heir. But our baby would be for love." The woman's name, Evelyn would later learn, was Seraphina Reed, a highly paid, ambitious analyst at Blackstone. And, as Evelyn was now realizing, the other woman. "He was going to leave you," Seraphina was sobbing now, pacing the room like a caged animal. "He swore it. As soon as the business of your pregnancy was over, he was going to set you up, and he and I, we were going to be a family. I'm sorry," Evelyn stammered, her mind racing. "This was a nightmare. This was a private hell made public." "Sorry?" Seraphina's head snapped up. "You're sorry? I was pregnant too." The words hung in the sterile air, more violent than any punch. "I was," Seraphina whispered, her hand going to her own flat stomach. 18 weeks. He said we would announce it after you gave birth. A quiet divorce, a modern family. And then I lost it. 2 weeks ago. A stress-induced miscarriage, the doctor said. And do you know where Joel was?" Evelyn could barely breathe. "He was with you," Seraphina hissed, "at that ridiculous polo match in the Hamptons. I called him, bleeding, and he sent me to his private doctor. He told me to handle it. He told me it was bad timing." She was close now, her hands in fists. And then, 3 days later, he cut me off. No calls, no texts. His security blocked me from his building. He erased me. He erased our baby. But he can't erase yours. In one swift, desperate movement, Serafina lunged. She didn't hit Evelyn. She lunged for the IV pole, the one dripping Pitocin into Evelyn's arm to keep the contraction stable. "If I can't have my baby," she screamed, yanking the pole, "then neither can you." Evelyn cried out as the pole crashed, ripping the IV from her arm. The fetal monitor beside the bed went skittering. Serafina grabbed the heavy, water-filled carafe from the bedside table and raised it. It was in that precise, horrific moment that two things happened simultaneously. The call button Evelyn had been mashing finally worked, and the door burst open, revealing Nurse Patricia and the 2 Croft security guards who had been stationed down the hall. At the same time, Evelyn, trying to scramble away, felt a sickening, warm gush and a contraction so powerful it stole her breath. She looked down. There was blood in the amniotic fluid. "Placental abruption!" she heard Dr. Reed scream from the hallway, pushing past the chaos. "She's abrupting! Get her to the OR! Now! Now!" Serafina stood frozen, the water carafe still in her hand, as security swarmed her, pinning her to the wall. Her face was a mask of shock, the adrenaline of her rage replaced by the cold horror of what she'd done. As they wheeled Evelyn's gurney out of the room, past the screaming, handcuffed mistress, Evelyn's eyes fluttered. The last thing she saw before the panic and the drugs took over was a small, blinking red light in the corner of the room. A security camera. A camera that, as per Croft family protocol for any hospital stay, was on a live, encrypted feed. A feed that went directly to the personal tablet of one man, Arthur Croft. Arthur Croft did not sleep. Sleep was a concession, a waste of billable hours. At 3 a.m. he was exactly where he always was, in his climate-controlled, soundproofed study on the 80th floor of the Croft Tower, overlooking the city he considered his kingdom. He was 68 years old, with a face that looked carved from granite, and eyes the color of a winter ocean. He was reviewing mineral rights acquisitions in Bolivia when a small, dedicated tablet on his desk chimed. It was the feed from Evelyn's hospital room. He had insisted on the camera, not for sentiment, but for security. The Croft heir was a target, a potential 9-figure ransom. He watched the feed with mild annoyance. His daughter-in-law was awake, and there was a stranger in the room. He unmuted the audio just as Serafina Reed uttered the words. "I was pregnant too." Arthur Croft did not move. His face remained impassive. He listened, his gaze fixed, as this woman, this liability, laid out his son's grotesque incompetence. He heard about the nursery, the promises, the miscarriage, the polo match. He wasn't angry. Anger was an emotion, and emotions were a weakness. What he felt was a cold, clarifying contempt. His son, Joel, was not just an adulterer. That Arthur could have overlooked. Croft men had appetites. No, Joel was stupid. He was sloppy. He had created a situation with no strategic upside. He had mixed a personal vulnerability with a business asset, the heir, and produced chaos. He had allowed an unstable element to get within striking distance of the family's single most important project, the continuation of the bloodline. Then Arthur watched as Serafina Reed, in her grief-fueled rage, lunged for the IV pole. He watched his daughter-in-law cry out. He watched the blood. He watched the monitors. Before the doctors had even burst into the room, Arthur Croft was already moving. His expression never changed, but his actions were swift. He pressed a single button on his intercom. "Matteo, my study. Now." His head of security, Matteo Thorne, a former Mossad agent who had been on Arthur's payroll for 20 years, entered the room 30 seconds later. He was already dressed in a suit. Like Arthur, Matteo didn't sleep. "Sir," Matteo said, his eyes glancing at the tablet feed, which now showed the chaos of the OR prep. "A woman named Serafina Reed. Blackstone. Find out everything. Her apartment, her financials, her family, her digital footprint. I want her life on my desk in 1 hour." "Yes, sir. Lock down the hospital. No one in or out of that wing. I want our men, not the hospitals, on Mrs. Croft's OR and recovery room." "Done, sir. Get the hospital's legal team and CEO on the phone. They will have a statement for me in 10 minutes about their security failure. They will be prepared to make that failure." "Right. Understood." "And Matteo," Arthur said, turning to face his most trusted employee. "Find my son. Bring him to the hospital. Do not tell him why. I want him to walk in blind." Matteo nodded, a flicker of something almost like pity in his eyes. "And the woman? Ms. Reed?" Arthur Croft looked at the frozen image of Serafina's screaming face on the tablet. "She is in the hands of the NYPD, who are en route. But they are irrelevant. I want her. Contained. Legally, financially, socially. I want her erased, Matteo. But I want her to know I am the one holding the eraser." Arthur's final call was to the hospital's board chairman, a man who sat on 2 of Arthur's own boards. The call was short. "Donald, Arthur, there has been an incident at Lenox Hill, a severe security breach. My daughter-in-law and my grandchild are in jeopardy." He paused. "I am disappointed. I expect a full, comprehensive and silent resolution. The reputation of your hospital depends on the health of my heir." "Do we understand each other?" The man on the other end stammered a "yes." Arthur hung up and returned to his desk. The Bolivia mineral maps were still waiting. Joel Croft was found at a high-end, unmarked club in Tribeca, celebrating a deal with 2 models and a bottle of $10,000 champagne. He was, as his father had suspected, drunk. "Mr. Croft," Matteo Thorne said, his voice cutting through the club's thumping bass. "You're needed. The car is waiting." Joel, flushed and arrogant, waved him off. "I'll be there in an hour, Matteo. Tell my father, too." Matteo didn't argue. He and the other guard simply lifted Joel by the elbows, nodded apologies to the bewildered models, and half-carried him out of the club. "What the hell is this?" Joel slurred as he was shoved into the back of a black Escalade. "You can't do this. I'll have your job." "It's your father's orders, Joel," Matteo said from the front seat, his voice flat. "We're going to the hospital." Joel's drunken bravado evaporated, replaced by a pale, sickly fear. "The baby? Is it the baby? Is Evelyn okay?" Matteo Thorne just looked at him in the rearview mirror, his eyes as cold and grey as his boss's. He said nothing. The 20-minute drive to Lenox Hill was, for Joel Croft, the longest journey of his life. Serafina Reed was not, by nature, a monster. She was a product, the daughter of a high school principal and a librarian from Ohio. She had clawed her way to the top on pure, unadulterated ambition. She had a magna cum laude degree from Penn, a prestigious MBA from Wharton, and a corner office at Blackstone before she was 30. She lived in a glass-walled apartment in Hudson Yards that she paid for herself. She wore armor, a black Alexander McQueen blazer, a steel-cased Cartier watch, and a cuttingly sharp intellect. Then she met Joel Croft at a charity gala at the Met. He had seen her, not as the predator she was in the boardroom, but as a challenge. She was, he told her, real. Not like the trust fund skeletons he usually dated. He pursued her with the same relentless focus his father pursued companies. and Serafina, for the first time in her life, let her guard down. He told her everything she needed to hear. That his marriage to Evelyn was a dynastic arrangement. That Evelyn was cold and transactional. That he was trapped by his father. The affair was a whirlwind of stolen weekends, private jets, and feverish promises. When Serafina found out she was pregnant, her first reaction was terror, her career, her independence. But Joel was ecstatic. "This is it, Sarah," he'd whispered, his hand on her stomach in her Hudson Yards apartment. "This is our way out. A new baby. A real family. My father respects family. We'll tell them. We'll handle Evelyn. We'll be together." He had bought the crib. He had held her as she cried with morning sickness. He had been, in every way, the man she'd dreamed of. The day of the polo match, she felt the first cramps. They were brutal. She called Joel. He was laughing. Background noise of clinking glasses. "Sarah, bad time. I'm with the board. Can it wait?" "No, Joel, I'm bleeding." The silence. Then his voice, cold and distant. "Go to Dr. Klein. I'll call him. He'll take care of you." Dr. Klein was a discreet doctor on Park Avenue who specialized in problems. He gave her a shot for the pain and a prescription. The miscarriage happened, violently and alone, on her Italian marble bathroom floor at 2.0 immolation. Joel didn't come. He sent flowers, a $5,000 bouquet of orchids. The card was unsigned. That's when she broke. The grief, mixed with the hormones and the blinding rage of betrayal, created a chemical reaction. She became unstable. She drank. She called him 50, 60 times a day. He blocked her number. She went to his building. The doorman, who used to greet her with a smile, suddenly didn't recognize her. His security stopped her at the elevator. She became, as Arthur Croft would later classify her, an unstable element. Her attack on Evelyn wasn't a plan. It was an implosion. She had gone to the hospital to see him, to confront Joel. She had assumed he would be there, playing the doting father-to-be for the cameras she was sure were present. When she was told only Mrs. Croft was there, she snapped. She had to see the woman who had everything, the woman who was about to deliver a healthy baby while hers was gone. She had to make her understand the pain. Now, sitting in a cold, fluorescent-lit holding cell at the 19th precinct, the adrenaline was gone. She was just cold. Her $2,000 silk blouse was torn and stained with hospital floor grime. Her hands were raw from the handcuffs. A detective, a tired man named O'Malley, opened the cell. "Serafina Reed, you've got a visitor. Your lawyer." Serafina wept with relief. "Oh God, thank you." "My phone. I need my phone." "He's here," O'Malley said, jerking a thumb. The man who walked in was not her corporate lawyer. It was Matteo Thorne. He wasn't wearing a suit. He was in casual tactical clothes. He sat down opposite her at the metal table, placing a small, military-grade briefcase down. "Ms. Reed, I am not your lawyer. I am your new reality." "Who are you?" Serafina whispered, terrified. "I work for Arthur Croft," Matteo said. His voice was quiet, but it filled the room. "I'm here to deliver a message." He opened the briefcase. It didn't contain legal pads. It contained two things. The first was a stack of papers. "This is a civil complaint, which will be filed in 45 minutes. It's a suit for $50 million for emotional distress, assault, and battery against Mrs. Evelyn Croft and her unborn child. It names you personally." Serafina's jaw dropped. 50. I don't have that." "We know," Matteo said. "This is your notice of termination from Blackstone, effective immediately, for moral turpitude and conduct detrimental to the firm. It was sent to your partners 20 minutes ago. Your company bio is already offline." He slid another paper. This is an eviction notice from your apartment in Hudson Yards. Your lease has been terminated by the building's board, of which Mr. Croft is a majority owner, for violating the terms of your residency. You have 24 hours to vacate. Your assets are being frozen as of 5 a.m., pending the civil suit. "You can't do this!" Serafina screamed, lunging forward. Matteo didn't flinch. "I am not finished." He pulled out the second item, a small, black, velvet-covered box. He opened it. Inside, nestled on silk, was a small gold baby's rattle. Serafina stared at it, confused. "This," Matteo said, his voice dropping, "was found in your apartment, purchased 3 months ago. A gift, perhaps?" Serafina's breath hitched. Joel had given it to her. "Our baby's first toy," he'd said. "The NYPD, at our request, is searching your apartment right now. They will find, in your digital records, a pattern of harassment against Joel Croft. They will find the Baby Monitor app. They will find, in your search history, Lenox Hill Hospital, Evelyn Croft, and how to bypass hospital security. No, I was just... You will be painted as a violent, obsessed, delusional stalker. The other woman story is gone. The miscarriage story is gone. They are buried. The new, permanent story is that you are a danger to society." Matteo stood up. "Mr. Croft has authorized a plea deal. The charges will be felony assault, reckless endangerment, and trespassing. You will plead guilty. You will serve a minimum of 5 years. If you do, the $50 million civil suit will be dropped. If you fight, we will use every resource to ensure you get the maximum sentence, and we will pursue the civil case until you are destitute. Your parents' home in Ohio will be in jeopardy to pay the judgment." Serafina was sobbing, a broken, animal sound. "He did this. Joel. He promised." Matteo leaned in, his face inches from hers. "Joel Croft is irrelevant. You made 2 mistakes. Your first was trusting a weak man. Your second and fatal mistake was becoming a problem for a strong one." He left the rattle on the table and walked out of the cell, leaving Serafina Reed's life in ashes behind him. Joel Croft stumbled out of the Escalade and into the pre-dawn chaos of the Lenox Hill loading dock. The air was cold and bit at his face, sobering him instantly. "What's going on, Matteo?" he demanded, trying to find his footing. "Where is she?" "Your wife is in surgery, Joel," Matteo said, his voice devoid of all warmth as he guided him through a service entrance. "There was an incident." "An incident? What, was it Serafina? Did she—" The look on Matteo's face confirmed it. Joel's blood turned to ice. "Oh, God. Is Evelyn okay? The baby? Is the baby okay?" "We don't know," Matteo said, steering him into a private, windowless waiting room. "Your father is on his way." "My father?" Joel's panic tripled. This was no longer a personal crisis. It was a corporate one. "He wants to see you. Wait here." Joel was left alone for 2 hours. 2 agonizing hours with no phone. Matteo had taken it. No news, and only the hum of a vending machine for company. He paced. He prayed. He cursed Serafina. He cursed himself. He cursed his father. At 6:05 a.m., the door opened. It wasn't a doctor. It was Arthur Croft, flanked by 2 lawyers Joel didn't recognize. Arthur looked as immaculate as he had at 3 a.m., his suit pressed, his tie perfect. He did not look like a man who had just learned his grandchild was in peril. He looked like a man about to close a hostile takeover. "Father," Joel stammered, standing up. What's the news?" Arthur Croft looked at his son. He didn't see his child. He saw a bad investment, a leveraged buyout gone wrong. "The boy's alive," Arthur said, his voice a low gravel. "Born at 5:17 a.m. 3 pounds, 2 ounces. He's in the NICU. He is, for now, stable. Joel sagged against the wall, a wave of relief washing over him, so potent it almost made him sick. And Evelyn? Is Evelyn okay? She's in recovery. She will survive. Arthur's voice was clipped. He motioned to the lawyers. Joel, Arthur said, I am here to inform you that, as of 6 a.m., an emergency session of the Croft Holdings board was convened. Joel's confusion was total. The board? Now? What? Why? You have been formally suspended from your position as COO, pending an internal investigation into gross misuse of company funds, breach of fiduciary duty, and conduct unbecoming an officer of this corporation. One of the lawyers, a sharp woman in a grey suit, stepped forward and handed Joel a thick binder. Mr. Croft, these are the preliminary findings. A lease on a Hudson Yards apartment paid for from a shell corporation tied to the Singapore Development Fund. A Porsche Panamera gifted to a consultant named Serafina Reed. Over $1.5 million in expenses over the last 8 months, all directly tied to your mistress. Joel stared at the pages, his face white. Father, this is a personal matter. You can't. You made it a corporate matter, Arthur thundered, his voice for the first time rising. When you used my money to fund your incompetence, you made it a corporate matter when your unstable mistress assaulted the mother of the company's heir. I can fix this. I'll pay it back. Father, please. Serafina, she's sick. She lost our baby. The words died in his throat. Arthur Croft's face had gone from granite to something far colder. She, Arthur said, his voice dangerously quiet, is a criminal. She is currently pleading guilty to assault. She will be in prison for 5 years. What? You can't just... I can, Arthur said. And I have, but she is not the problem. You are. Arthur took a step closer, and Joel, for the first time since he was a child, physically recoiled. You are weak, Joel. You are a liability. You have proven yourself incapable of protecting the family, incapable of protecting the legacy. Arthur turned to the lawyers. He's served. The second lawyer handed Joel another, thinner packet. Mr. Croft, these are divorce papers, filed on behalf of your wife, Evelyn Croft. She is suing for divorce on grounds of adultery, with a cruelty provision. She is demanding full, sole custody of the child, and the activation of the infidelity clause in your prenuptial agreement. Joel looked at the signature page. It was a scanned copy, but it was Evelyn's signature, sharp, precise, and dated that morning. No, Joel whispered. Evelyn, she wouldn't. She's in surgery. I had her sign it before she went under, Arthur said, checking his Patek Philippe watch. It's done. You did this, Joel realized, a hysterical laugh bubbling in his chest. This is your revenge, not on Serafina, on me. This is not revenge, Joel, Arthur said, walking to the door. Revenge is emotional. This is a correction, a market adjustment. He paused at the door. You are not to see Evelyn. You are not to see the child. Your access to all Croft properties is revoked. Your credit cards have been cancelled. Matteo will escort you to a more appropriate residence downtown. A car is waiting. Father, please! Joel was sobbing now, a pathetic, broken man. He's my son, I'm your son. Arthur Croft looked at him one last time, his eyes utterly empty. The boy in the NICU is my son. You are a stranger. The door closed, leaving Joel alone with the 2 lawyers and the ruins of his life. At 7 a.m., the New York Post's page 6 server crashed. The headline, fed to them by Arthur Croft's PR team, was explosive. Croft heir, born amid hospital chaos. Joel Croft ousted from empire. Wife files for divorce after violent stalker attacks maternity ward. The story, written by a Croft-friendly journalist, painted Evelyn as a tragic victim, Serafina as a deranged former employee. They'd falsely tied her to a rival firm, and Arthur Croft as the iron-willed patriarch, protecting his family by any means necessary. Joel's name was mentioned only in reference to his ousting. He had been, in the space of 3 hours, publicly and permanently executed. The entire city was in shock. Evelyn Croft woke up to the steady beep of a heart monitor and the abrasive, starchy smell of surgical blankets. Her body felt alien, a territory of deep, aching pain. There was an emptiness where the great weight of her son had been. "He's okay," a voice said. She opened her eyes. Arthur Croft was sitting in a chair by her bedside, not the sterile hospital chair, but a plush leather wingback that had clearly been brought in for him. He was in a fresh suit. "Arthur," she rasped, her throat raw from the breathing tube. "He is stable," Arthur repeated, his voice gentle, a register she had never heard him use. Arthur William Croft II, 5 pounds, 2 ounces. A fighter, the doctors say. Like his grandmother. Evelyn let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Joel?" "Joel has been handled," Arthur said. "He is no longer a concern. For either of us." He motioned to a small, discreetly placed folder on her bedside table. "Your lawyers," he said, "are very efficient." Evelyn stared at him. The fog of the anesthesia was clearing, and in its place, a cold, sharp clarity was forming. "You saw the feed." "It wasn't a question." "I saw everything," Arthur confirmed. "And Serafina?" "She has accepted responsibility for her actions. She will be away for a long time." Evelyn processed this. The attack, the emergency C-section, the divorce, her son in the NICU. She should have been hysterical. She should have been weeping. Instead, she felt light. "It wasn't a perfect plan," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. Arthur raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "Plan?" "My plan," Evelyn said. "I wasn't going to divorce him until after the baby was born. I needed the baby to be a Croft, legally. I needed the leverage of the birthright." Arthur Croft, for the second time in his life, was genuinely surprised. He sat back in his chair. "You knew," he stated. "I've known for 6 months," Evelyn said. "Since the polo match. Joel is careless. He left his phone unlocked. I saw the texts to Sarah, the I love yous, the nursery pictures." A single tear traced a path down her temple, but her voice didn't waver. "I hired a private investigator. A good one. Not one of yours. One of my own. I have every receipt, every hotel bill, every wire transfer from the shell accounts. I have video of him going into her building. I even have the audio from Dr. Klein's office about her situation." Arthur's eyes widened. "How?" "My PI is ex-Shin Bet, better than your ex-Mossad," Evelyn said with a faint, wry smile. "I was going to wait. I was going to let him think he had it all, and then I was going to take it from him. The baby, the settlement, my freedom, the attack. Serafina just accelerated my timeline." She looked at her father-in-law, a man who respected only one thing: strength. "I signed the papers, Arthur," she said. "Not because you told me to, but because it was the next move in my game." There was a long, profound silence in the room. The only sound was the beep of the monitor. Arthur Croft stared at the pale, bruised woman in the bed. This was not the timid, middle-class lawyer he had approved for his son. This was not an acquisition. This was a mirror. "The infidelity clause," Arthur said, "grants you $50 million, the apartment, the Hamptons estate, full custody. It's a generous and final settlement. Evelyn shook her head. It's not enough. No, Arthur agreed. It is not. Joel is weak, Evelyn said, and his weakness almost cost me my son. Our heir. You need to protect the legacy. And you've just proven your only blood relative is a bad investment. What do you want, Evelyn? Arthur asked, his voice low. I don't want a settlement, Arthur. I want a partnership. She took a shaky breath. Joel is out. That leaves a power vacuum. The board is rattled. The press is having a field day. You need a new story. A better one. Go on. The story isn't Billionaire's son ousted. The story is new matriarch rises. I'm the mother of the heir. I'm the victim who survived. I have a law degree, and I have a spine of steel. You've seen the evidence. I'm smarter than your son, and I'm more ruthless. What? Do you want? I want Joel's seat on the board, Evelyn said, her eyes locking on his. And I want control of the Croft Family Charitable Foundation. It's a $5 billion slush fund you've been using for social leverage and tax breaks. I'll make it a real entity, a global force. I'll make the Croft name mean something other than scandal. I'll be the face of the family, the mother, the survivor, the philanthropist. She smiled, a thin, painful smile. And in exchange, you get what you've always wanted, a gatekeeper for your legacy. Someone who will protect your grandchild and your empire with their life. Someone you can trust, because I have just as much to lose as you do. Arthur Croft was very still for a full minute. He saw it all in that instant. The chess game laid out. She was right. The city was shocked by his revenge on Joel. But this was a move no one would ever see coming. He stood up. He walked to her bedside and, for the first time, gently touched her hand. Rest, Evelyn, he said. Recover. You have a board meeting in 2 weeks. The 2 weeks that followed were not a blur of recovery. That implies a passive, gentle healing. This was a reforging. It was a brutal, strategic, and precise reconstruction of a woman, a family, and an empire. Evelyn Croft's penthouse on Fifth Avenue, once her gilded cage, was transformed. The suffocating silence was replaced by a 24/7 hum of quiet, focused activity. The Roche-Beaubois sofa, where she had once sat alone and pregnant, was now the center of a command post. On the glass coffee table, stacks of legal briefs sat beside sterilized baby bottles. A top-of-the-line encrypted video conferencing suite was installed opposite a state-of-the-art snoo bassinet, where Arthur William Croft II, Artie, as Evelyn had firmly named him, rejecting the dynastic second, slept under the watchful eye of a rotating NICU nurse. Evelyn herself was a general in a silk robe. The physical pain from the emergency C-section was a constant, searing reminder of the attack. But she used it. She channeled the pain, that raw, visceral fire, into a diamond-hard focus. She was polite to the nurses, tender to her son, and utterly ruthless with everyone else. On the 10th day, she held her first full strategy meeting. In attendance were Arthur Croft's top PR strategist, a woman named Amelia Vance, the Croft family's lead counsel, and Matteo Thorne, who now reported directly to her, on Arthur's orders. Evelyn sat in a plush armchair, Artie cradled in her arms. She was pale, but her eyes were sharp. Amelia, Evelyn began, her voice quiet but carrying. Walk me through the Forbes profile. Amelia, a woman who terrified senators, looked at her notes. The angle is the survivor. We'll focus on your resilience, your quiet strength, a soft focus shoot here in the penthouse. We'll talk about your love for your son, your gratitude to Arthur for his protection, and your plans for the future. perhaps a small charitable initiative. Evelyn looked at her for a long, silent moment. Artie made a small, snuffling sound. "No," Evelyn said. Amelia blinked. I'm sorry?" No soft focus, no quiet strength, and gratitude is the wrong word, Evelyn said, adjusting Artie's blanket. "I am not a victim to be pitied. I was a target. My ordeal, as the Post so delicately put it, was a symptom of a systemic failure. A failure in security, and a failure in leadership." She looked at Matteo. "The narrative isn't Evelyn the survivor. It's Evelyn the new standard. It's Croft Holdings under new management." She then turned back to Amelia. "The Forbes piece will be a business profile. I am not a grieving widow. I am an executive. The angle is the reorganization. We will discuss the new security protocols for the family and the new ethical protocols for the company's officers. I am not a charitable initiative. I am the new chairwoman of the Croft Foundation. And it will no longer be a tax shelter for polo sponsorships. Is that clear?" Amelia, for the first time in her career, was stunned. She looked at Matteo, who simply gave a small nod. He had his orders. He was witnessing the new chain of command. "Yes, Mrs. Croft," Amelia said, a new, genuine respect in her voice. "The angle is executive. I'll redraft the pitch." "You will," Evelyn said, "and the title will be The Matriarch. Now let's talk about the board." The public execution of Joel Croft was as swift as it was total. He was the story that shocked the city, the gossip that dominated every dinner party from the Upper East Side to Wall Street. Arthur's revenge, as it was universally called, was legendary. The New York Post ran the first story, a brutal front-page splash, Croft Fall. It detailed his ousting, his cancelled credit cards, and his banishment from the family. The Forbes profile on Evelyn landed 1 week later, a masterful counter-narrative. The cover photo was not soft. She was in a navy blue Armani suit, her hair pulled back, holding Artie. Her gaze was directed at the camera, unwavering. The headline, "The Matriarch, Evelyn Croft, on family, survival, and the billion-dollar future of a dynasty." The article itself was a masterpiece of spin, painting her as a brilliant legal mind who had stepped up in a crisis, a protective mother, and a formidable new partner to the patriarch, Arthur. And Joel? Joel was a ghost. He was last spotted by a single, determined paparazzi photographer who had been tipped off by someone. He was standing in the rain, outside a mid-range hotel in Murray Hill. His $30,000 Brioni suit was crumpled, his face was gaunt, and he was yelling into a prepaid cell phone. He had tried to call his old friends. The calls went to voicemail. He tried to call his mother, who lived in comfort in France on Arthur's dime. The number was disconnected. He tried to use his name to get a table, a drink, a room. "Croft?" The hotel concierge had sneered, looking at the post on his desk. "I'm sorry, sir. That name has no credit here." He saw Evelyn's Forbes cover on a newsstand. He stared at it, the rain plastering his hair to his skull. He saw his wife holding his son in his suit. He didn't feel anger. He didn't feel sadness. He felt a cold, hollowing emptiness. He realized in that moment that he had never been the protagonist of his own story. He was just the prologue to hers. Serafina Reed was less than a ghost. She was a redacted file. Her plea deal, orchestrated by Matteo and the Croft legal team, was swift. She was found mentally unfit due to her miscarriage, pleaded guilty to assault, and was quietly sent to a private, long-term care facility in upstate New York, a place with high walls and no internet access. She was a loose end, and the Crofts, under new management, did not tolerate loose ends. The climax of the 2-week war was the board meeting. It was held on the 80th floor of Croft Tower, in a room that smelled of old money, leather, and palpable fear. The 12 board members, all men over 60, sat around the obsidian table. They were all terrified. They had read the papers. Arthur Croft was on a warpath. He had butchered his own son. What would he do to a board member who had underperforming assets? They were all nervously checking their own expense reports. The doors opened. The room went silent. Arthur Croft entered, his face a mask of granite. "Good morning, gentlemen." But he was not alone. Behind him, a set of double doors was opened by a security guard, and through them came Evelyn Croft. She was not in a dress. She was in a charcoal grey suit, custom-tailored, with a high-necked silk blouse. Her hair was in a severe, perfect chignon. Her face was pale but immaculate. She looked less like a new mother and more like a warrior queen. And she was pushing a simple, elegant, black bassinet. The sound of the high-end rubber wheels on the marble floor was the only sound in the room. It was a sound of profound, unbelievable audacity. The board members stared, speechless. "Gentlemen," Arthur said, taking his seat, "there is a change to the agenda. As you know, Joel Croft's seat is vacant." He gestured to Evelyn, who stood at the opposite end of the table, a new pole of power. "I propose Evelyn Hayes Croft to fill that seat." A shocked silence. Then one man, a banking scion named Robert Henderson, cleared his throat. He was the brave one. "Arthur," Henderson said, his voice straining to sound reasonable, "with all due respect to Mrs. Croft, this is a multi-billion-dollar global shipping and real estate concern, not a nursery." He chuckled nervously. No one laughed. Her ordeal. It's tragic, but it hardly qualifies her for this position. This requires experience. Evelyn let the silence hang. Then she walked from behind the bassinet to the center of the table. She looked directly at Henderson. "Mr. Henderson," she began, her voice not loud, but it cut through the room like a scalpel. "Thank you for your candor. My ordeal, as you call it, was not a tragedy. It was a stress test, one that this company's COO and this board's oversight failed. Utterly." She began to walk slowly around the table, her eyes scanning each man. "Joel's personal matter became a corporate liability. He exposed this board, this family, and our stakeholders to catastrophic front-page risk, and none of you, in your quarterly meetings, ever saw it. Your experience saw only the P&L sheets. You didn't see the rot in the foundation." She stopped, placing her hands on the back of an empty chair. "I did. I saw it. I lived it. I am the only person in this room who understands the true, tangible cost of weak leadership. I am the only one who has been stress-tested." She looked at Henderson again. "You are correct. I have not run a shipping concern, but I am a graduate of NYU law, magna cum laude. I am the mother of the sole heir to this empire, and as of this morning, thanks to the infidelity and cruelty clause in the contract my husband was so foolish as to sign, I am the single largest non-institutional shareholder in this company. My ordeal, as you put it, Mr. Henderson, just made me your new boss." A collective intake of breath. Henderson went white. "I am not here despite being a mother," Evelyn said, her voice dropping, pulling them all in. "I am here because I am one. My priorities are not muddled by mistresses or expensive champagne. My priority is singular, the legacy, the asset, the future, the one," she gestured to the bassinet, "sleeping right over there. I am not emotional, gentlemen. I am invested." She looked at her father-in-law, down the long, obsidian expanse. No one in this room has more to protect than I do. Arthur Croft watched her. He had seen the entire attack on the video feed. He had seen her terror. Now he saw a mirror of his own ruthlessness. He gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. The torch had been passed. "Now," Evelyn said, walking to the head of the table. She didn't take Joel's seat. She took a new seat, brought in by Matteo, right at Arthur's right hand. "If we are concluded with the vote, which I see as unanimous, I have my first proposal." She nodded to Matteo, who handed out thick, bound files to the stunned board members. "The Croft Family Foundation is being dissolved and reconstituted," Evelyn announced. "We are liquidating all sentimental assets, the polo sponsorships, the modern art collection, the museum galas. They are a waste of capital. We are redirecting all $5 billion into 3 new, high-visibility, global pillars." The board members opened the files, their faces draining of all color. 1. The Serafina's Law Initiative, a global legal aid fund for victims of intimate partner, corporate harassment. A few men choked. 2. The Evelyn Croft Wing for Pediatric Trauma, a state-of-the-art wing at Lenox Hill, specializing in high-risk births under duress. And 3. The New Air Security Protocol, a think tank focused on protecting the assets and families of high-net-worth individuals from internal threats. Evelyn stood, a small, cold smile on her face. She had weaponized her trauma. She had monetized her pain. She had turned her entire nightmare into a global brand, a PR masterpiece, and a fortress. This is not just charity, gentlemen. This is our new brand. We are no longer just rich. We are invulnerable. It's a much more profitable story. I expect your full support. The meeting was adjourned. The old men filed out, shaken, their careers flashing before their eyes. Only Arthur and Evelyn remained. The baby, Artie, began to stir. Arthur looked from Evelyn to his grandson. "The city was so shocked by my revenge on Joel," he mused, almost to himself. "They thought I was the butcher." Evelyn picked up her son who had been born in blood and fire. She kissed his head. She looked out the window at the city, her city, sprawled out below. "Don't worry, Arthur," she said, her reflection staring back at her from the glass. "They'll never see the surgeon." The king was dead. Long live the queen. And just like that, the entire power structure of New York City shifted. The revenge was complete, but it wasn't the one anyone expected. It wasn't just about a father punishing his son. It was about a new power, Evelyn, rising from the ashes of betrayal, not as a victim, but as a victor. She and Arthur Croft, 2 ruthless operators, cut out the weak link and formed an alliance that would make them more powerful than ever. What do you think of this story? Who do you think was the real villain? Was it the unstable mistress, the cheating husband, or the cold-hearted father? Or was Evelyn the most ruthless of them all? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This story is a wild one, and if you want to hear more true-life dramas and shocking tales, make sure you like this video, share it with someone who loves a good story, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss what's coming next.